Hello and namaskaram andi. Welcome to all to this video podcast series, Lokmanthan 2024 Voices. Today we are very glad to have with us Sri Giridhar Mamidi Garu. Thank you, Andi Giridhar Mamidi Garu, for taking your valuable time and joining us.
Namaste, Andy. Namaste. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure, Andi. Thank you. So, to the viewers, here is the introduction and the great credibility that Giridhar Mamidi Garu carries with him. Giridhar Mamidi Garu is a chartered accountant holding degrees in commerce and law. He has held key leadership positions in several prestigious organizations, including serving as CFO for Punj Lloyd in Saudi Arabia, Unibiton Readymix UAE, and DLF offices and IT parks in Delhi. Notably, he was the first head of finance for Google India and also led finance operations for ADP India. Currently, Giridhar Mamidi Garu serves as the State Vice President of Pragna Bharati, Telangana, and the convener of Samalochana, Andhra Pradesh. His roles reflect his deep commitment to promoting and preserving Bharatiya culture, values, and heritage. Apart from his corporate expertise, he is an active panelist on TV debates covering topics such as social, political, cultural, and strategic affairs. Giridhar Mamidi Garu also hosts the Global Roundup, a special weekly program on the Nationalist Hub channel, offering insights into world affairs from a nationalist perspective with over 160 episodes that have been completed. Wow. Beyond media and professional endeavors, Giridhar Mamidi Garu is deeply involved in cultural preservation. That is what we see even as a background, Giridhar Garu. He has toured over 80 sites associated with the Mahabharata and Vedic periods, including significant Harappan sites in Bharat, and extensively covered the length of the extinct Saraswati River. So reading this itself is elevating me so much, Andy. His commitment also extends to performing Rudrabhishekam at various border points, honoring the valor of our forces and the glory of Sanatana Dharma and restoration of Akhanda Bharat. We are privileged to have him with us today to share his insights on Rani Rudrama Devi and her profound contributions to our Bharatiya heritage. Thank you once again, Andi Giridhar Garu. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling me, allowing me to have space on your podcast.
Thank you, Andi. Thank you. So, over to the first question to you, sir. Rani Rudrama Devi broke societal norms and emerged as the first recorded Hindu women leader in our history. That's such a great privilege. How do you feel her strength and courage should resonate with and inspire the women of Bharat today?
Wonderful question, madam. So the point is, we are talking about a certain period when women hardly came out. Women had very little, role to play in governance and things like that, and where they were confined within the four walls of the house. And so we are talking about such an era where it was completely male dominated, where no kingdom around the country, Akhanda Bharat, saw any worthwhile female ruler. Maybe there were some women who were running the show with some titular heads, maybe their children or somebody else in the throne, but they were running the show. But somebody as a sovereign with full authority who ran, was ruling a particular massive area probably she's the first. And of course, Razia Sultan predates her, but Razia Sultan never could govern the way Rani Rudrama Devi governed. In fact, I would we need to probably elevate her, just not Rani Rudrama Devi. She's a Maharani Rudrama Devi, because the kind of territory she ruled probably is more than today's France or maybe Germany or Spain. Massive territory she ruled. So she's a great queen. In fact, she called herself a king. So we understand the problems that the people faced in that particular era. So anyway, so she was somebody who ruled for a very long period. Razia Sultan could hardly last for 3-4 years, and she was constantly on the run. She and her lover, both of them were killed, and then the throne was usurped. So she never really sat on the throne and ran the country, ran her kingdom in a way that Rani Rudrama Devi did. So in that sense, she was probably the first most successful women ruler of Akhand Bharat. So she even beat Razia Sultan to that. Second, of course, she was the first Hindu ruler, Hindu women ruler rather. She has broken that glass ceiling for the women, at least in that particular era. So you see there, if you Google it or you go to Wikipedia and search, probably you will find a couple of other names of women who ruled longer than her, but they were not sovereigns. They were subordinate kings to some other emperor. That's the kind of history that Maharani Rudrama Devi carries. So this itself should inspire us to an extent that just imagine if she could do it in that age and millennium, what can the women do today? So she's left a path for the women of today to, she's blazed that path for people to follow her. And so her legacy is something which not just women, every man, every Bharatiya should be extremely proud of. Unfortunately, her legacy, her life, her rule, her contributions are something which are not widely known. In fact, when I was a kid, I was studying in Warangal, which is their capital, but my own history textbooks never spoke about Kakatiyas. I knew about Babur to Aurangzeb and whatnot, but then our own textbooks didn't carry it. Of course, now that has been corrected. Some history textbooks in schools are now talking about the Kakatiyas and Rani Rudrama Devi, but that too, a lot of false narratives are being pumped in and projecting them as some kind of a cruel ruling class or elite class and things like that. But as we go down in this podcast, we will talk about her legacy, the kind of contributions she did. It's just amazing, it's stunning. When I started researching her, when I started talking to people, I have met a few real experts in this. Most prominent among them is Sri Satyanarayana, Dr. Satyanarayana Devayana Palligaru. He's a curator. He has actually done a lot of these tribal museums. He has actually established, of course, with government funds. He works in one of such tribal museums. And so he has been an archaeologist. So he's been a great source of information for me. Of course, there are other people who have inspired me. And as I said, since my childhood, I grew up in Warangal. So I visited all these Kakatiya monuments for all my life. And so they've always inspired me. And the kind of legacy that Rani Rudrama Devi has left is just unimaginable. But problem is, at least definitely I am a typical Mekale Putra. I never knew about such great legends of my own lands. What I knew was very minimal, and even that was what the powers that be wanted me to know. So I had to decolonize my mind, go research her, and then a whole world opened up for me. So I would really sincerely want our women, our current generation, to really understand, know about her, her glory, her greatness, her contributions. And that should really inspire, the current generations to, if not replicate her, at least achieve some things with her inspiration.
Sure, Andy. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So continuing further, Giridhar Garu, could you kindly share with us the significance of Rani Rudrama Devi's rule in the Bharatiya history? What makes her legacy so meaningful and inspiring for us today?
As I said, being a woman itself is a major challenge for her. Of course, even men face challenges, rebellions and all. But just imagine how it would have been for a woman. So she was highly protected by her father, Ganapati Deva, Kakati Ganapati Deva. Kakati Ganapati Deva probably ruled the longest in this country. He ruled for 61 years. He lived much beyond 90 years. So he, brought up his child, only child, Rani Rudrama Devi, literally as a boy. He taught her what a man should know, the art of warfare, using weapons, how to run a country, how to administer a country, how to take care of rebellion, how do you counterbalance it with some treaties, where should you step back a bit, where should you take aggressive posture, where should you preempt. So she was taught all this by her legendary father. And even then, he did not allow her to reveal her true identity. Initial part of her reign, she was called Rudra Deva. She was addressed as a man. So only after Ganapati Deva was confident that she has the capability, he let her use her real name of Rudrama Devi. So for 6-7 years, they ruled the kingdom jointly. After that, he left her to rule it on her own. So this is this in itself is an absolutely unbelievable historical legacy that we all should be really proud of and we should get inspired with. And then, like I said, everybody faces rebellion. She faced a lot of rebellions. Obviously, the so-called Samanta Rajyas, which are titular, the people who are her subordinate kings, all of them rebelled. They did not want to be governed by a woman. So it was a very male thing. So she faced a lot of rebellion. And she was so authoritative. I mean, I would say she was so experienced and she was so capable that she could suppress all of these people. She could really put down the rebellion big time. Not just rebellion from within, but all the kingdoms which are bordering her kingdom, they wanted to take over her kingdom because they thought, what would a woman do? People from the South Tamil Nadu area today, what we call as Tamil Nadu area, the Cholas and others, or be it people from Aurangabad, today's Aurangabad, which bordered the Kakatiya kingdom, or it could be people from Odisha, or it could be people from the current days Karnataka. Unfortunately, we understand these things only when we kind of correlate it with today's boundaries. Otherwise, these boundaries didn't exist then. For instance, she is not, of course, Warangal is today in Telangana, but confining her to being a Telangana hero or a Telangana queen itself is, what do you say, it's a shame. Her legacy doesn't deserve to be called just as a Telangana queen, because she ruled such a vast area, as I said, probably the size of France or Germany or something like that. So it encompassed much, much larger areas, which included all of Telugu lands, which included, some parts in Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and parts of what is today's Tamil Nadu. That's the kind of vast empire that she ruled. So she should not be confined, bottled up into smaller narratives. She was much larger than what currently she's portrayed as. That is why we should really richly cherish her legacy. And then, in a period, millennia, where women hardly had any power. Not just that, she participated in several battles. She fought herself. She fought, won those battles, defeated them, and then she established her authority in the entire kingdom. And she ruled it for more than 30 years. So that in itself is a big legend. I mean, till date, nobody has replicated it. Even Indira Gandhi did not rule for 30 years.
Right.
So, or for that matter, Sheikh Hasina, or for that matter, Benazir Bhutto, when I'm talking about Akhand Bharat. There is nobody who has replicated the kind of period that she ruled in such a very time when only male domination was so predominant.
Right.
So in that sense, her rule, her governance is something which we should all cherish.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for that. So, further moving on, Rani Rudrama Devi's journey from modest beginnings to becoming a powerful leader is truly inspiring. What heartfelt lessons can our youth and leaders draw from her resilience and commitment to serving the people?
So this is a very important question. Let's first talk about the origins of Kakatiyas. Because while she had a privileged life, because she was already daughter of emperor.
Emperor.
So Ganapati Deva was a Chakravarti himself. He was having a vast empire. So she had a very privileged childhood, very privileged family and background. But Kakatiyas themselves came from very modest backgrounds. So they come from a, today we are using the term called tribe, but it was not the term used then. They had the inscriptions in many places where they said, they proudly announced what the origins of their particular community, their family. They said, we are the Shudra community. And it says that they come from a certain, jati called Kaka. Kaka is a word which is used even today in Telangana to indicate fever, heat. Na Kaka Ochindi is a Telugu word they use to say that I've got heat. That means I've got a heat. So essentially, they were worshippers of Jwara Devata.
Oh.
Yeah. So Jwara Devata again is somebody who has if somebody has a disease or some ailment, it manifests as a fever. So when they're worshipping a fever god, it actually means that they are worshipping a healing god, right? Somebody who can heal people. The tribe comes from that particular community. They rose up in the ranks. As they grew, they became chieftains and then they became subordinate kings to Rashtrakutas, Chalukyas and others. Then Ganapati Deva's father, Rudra Deva, he declared independence and from there on Kakatiya rule started. So Rudradeva announced, because they come from a Kaka tribe, he announced Kakati, because we come from that. In Telugu, Ti means they belong to that. Kakati. So that's how the name stuck to them. Of course, there are a couple of other explanations, but this seems to be more logical because that is there in their shasanas and all. So they come from that origin. So she has never forgotten her, the origins of their community, of their family. And so she always respected the Janajatis, Vanavasis, their culture, their traditions. She richly funded all of them. And then even she used to follow their traditions. And, she comes from that kind of a background. And you ask the question, how does that resonate with today's families or today's generations? We are seeing how dynasts are behaving. In today's politics, we see so many families. I don't want to politicize this, but whether national parties or regional parties, we see second, third generation dynasts. They claim a right to rule this land as God-given right. It percolates down from their family or from the last name which their grandfather or great-grandfather gave them. Right? So you look at the way they are behaving, today's dynasts, right? It tantamounts to their birthright to rule, this country. You compare that with what Rani Rudrama Devi did. Her grandfather Rudradeva was the one who declared being an independent ruler. She did not sit on her laurels. She learned the hard way. Her younger days were all spent on learning everything, learning the art of warfare, learning the art of governance, learning the art of, Chatushashti Kalalu, 64 Kalas. So she was a great dancer herself. She was a musician herself. She was a literate person. She could write a lot of, things so that people cannot fool her. If her pottery is trying to fool her, she knows it. She has read economics, accounting. She had a varied knowledge of so many things. Her childhood and youth was not something which she enjoyed going to Singapore, Bangkok, or somewhere. She focused on, life was very, very hard for her. She had a very hard life, and she was made into a very powerful weapon by her father, Ganapati Deva. She knew how to handle adversities. She knew how to handle opponents, very, very adverse conditions. So she was not like a typical dynast of today. She did not come with an entitlement. She went through the hard grind of knowing all these things, going through like anybody else. And so she richly deserved to be in that seat. She did not come into that position just because she was Rudrama Devi or being daughter of Ganapati Deva.
Right,
There
right.
was nobody in her kingdom who could challenge her. So she earned that position, and that's the reason. That's the reason why she could suppress all rebellion that stood up against her. If she could defeat all those rebellion, because again, rebellion doesn't happen one rebellion here, one rebellion there. All of them join together and they come in a pack. But she defeat all of them. So that is the reason why she was in that position by the sheer efforts that she had put in to grow up to that stature. Her grooming, her education, her knowledge base, her training, all of that added to what Maharani Rudrama Devi is. So that is something which today's dynasts should understand. Being born in a family is not a crime. Yes, and aspiring for power is not a crime again. But you should earn it. You should
Earn the
invest.
right. Earn the right.
Correct. You should earn the right. Go through the grind. Understand politics. Understand the legacy. Understand so many things. Governance, challenges. You need to go through that. Unfortunately, today we are seeing the exact opposite of what Rani Rudrama Devi did. That is why she is a great inspiration even for the current day politicians.
Right. So nicely said, Andy. So nicely said. So, and actually, in one of the conversations earlier, I heard you say that Rani Rudrama Devi had come to the temple to worship, and then she didn't have, her protection, and the way she handled people attacking her. Do you want to share that?
I understand. This is how it goes. There was a temple called, the temple is still there, Ekavira. So, Ekavira Devi. It's a goddess temple. That is, it's not a female whole body, but just one private part of a female goddess, Devi. So you can understand, this is a tradition which is there very deeply in many Vanavasis even today. So-called tribes, you see in forest areas, in remote areas, they worship the body parts of goddess. So that was the kind of a legacy it had. And she went with Bonalu, what today Bonalu, Telangana is promoting so much. She was actually practicing it because her origins are from a very modest background. I mean, their family's traditions. They continued with their traditions. So she went to the temple to offer her prayers to goddess, and seeing that opportunity, Dayadulu, we call in Telugu Dayadulu, her cousins, of course, they also belong to the same family. They were Ganapati Deva's brothers' children. They were ruling in Dhanyakataka or today's Aurangabad area. So they seized that opportunity, came and usurped, took control of Warangal fort. So she didn't have her army with her. She was all alone, just with her security guards, bodyguards, and nothing else. So she did not run away. She did not lose it. What she did was she inspired the public, and she had the public movement, entire public, the citizens of our country. Everybody stood behind her. She went, defeated them. A hard fought battle just with her bodyguards, with the help of the peasantry, the common man, and then she defeated those cousins and chased them right up to Bidar, what is today's Bidar. And she left an inscription on one of the stone pillars there, where she said, if my cousins, who are like giant elephants, I defeated them like a lion. If they dare to cast a wrong eye on Warangal again, on Kakatiya kingdom again, I will not spare them just being my brothers. I will ensure that they are killed. I will chase them and kill them. This is the kind of a warning she gave in that particular Bidar Shasana. So that at that point, she gave herself a very wonderful title. The title is Daya Gaja Keshari. So Daya Gaja Kesari. Gaja means elephant. Daya means her cousins. Daya we call it. So Daya Gaja. The Dayas who were like Gajas, I am a Kesari to them. I am a lion. So you see the picture which is behind in my background. So I would just move to show her actually. You can see.
Oh, so nice. Rani
Yeah,
Rudrama.
correct. That is Rani Rudrama Devi. So she's standing on a lion with a sword and a shield fighting. So that's the kind of a person she was, and she defeated them, and they could not think of looking at Warangal all her life. So that's the kind of a powerful personality she was. She was a fighter. She was multifaceted personality. Unfortunately, in the common public knowledge, because we want binaries, we want some aspects to project. So only her valor, her fighting spirit is all shown. We see that she's standing on a horse, she's riding a horse with a knife, is all that we see of her images here. But she's much, much, much more than that. Yes, that is one aspect. She was a great fighter, no doubt about it. Which is what the story of Ekavira Devi reflects, and the way she reclaimed her kingdom, the way she suppressed her subordinate kings. That itself shows how she was a great fighter. In fact, she fought so many battles. She even fought a battle just before her death. Even when she was 80, 81 years old, she fought a battle. And she participated in that battle at 80th year. Just imagine.
Wow, that's so inspiring.
Absolutely. And she died after the war.
Oh.
Well, we do not have evidence to show whether she died of injuries during the war or she died because of her normal old age. She was probably around 80 to 82 years because exact date of her birth is not known. But her date of death is roughly known. So given that and the period when she got married, when we do a back calculation, probably she was anything between 80 to 82 when she died. And she fought a battle in that particular year. After the battle was won by her. By the way, she won the war. After they won the war, then she died after that. So all her life she fought. So that's the kind of a great personality that we are talking about. So, when you asked about the story of Ekavira Devi, probably I stretched it to reflect her entire life of fighting.
That's really so very inspiring. And it really talks about so much of courage, the valor, and all of it as just one woman, right? She didn't have a lot of support either.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, not just her subordinate kings, even those treasury keepers and people who are to man the armory, her funds, her all her precious treasury that she had, they refused to cooperate with her. They refused to give her accounts. So you can understand what happens if you don't know how much you have. They can as well take home and then you're done with it, right? But then she handled them. It is just not about fighting a war alone. You fight a battle every single day of your life. You have to ensure that these people fall in line and they respect your authority and they stick to the rule-based life. That is what she did.
And again, ethical values, right?
Right, absolutely right. In fact, Ganapati Deva's Shasanas and Rani Rudrama Devi's, Maharani Rudrama Devi's Shasanas always speak about one thing. In fact, Ganapati Deva taught her and he told her that we are like parents to our subjects. Always remember that you are a mother to your subjects. So don't think you're a ruler. So they behaved in that way. So of course they need to have authority. They need to have a huge entourage, army. That's all there given. But her attitude or the attitude of her father was such that they were very benevolent. They always looked for the welfare of the people. So that's how they grew. Their attitude was more of benevolence, not of exploitation. We hear the stories of so many kings who are exploitative. But whereas these people were not just great rulers who conquered, who retained, who ruled over large tracts of land, but they also did wonderful service to the subjects in their kingdom.
That's so nice. Really very nice listening to all this. And it really pumps a lot of, that pride and honor for people, for leaders like Rani Rudrama Devi, who have ruled our country. And then, we are kind of, we carry their legacy. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for sharing that. So moving on to the next one, the upcoming Lokmanthan 2024 event. It emphasizes the richness of our culture and values. In light of this, how do Rani Rudrama Devi's initiatives, such as her pioneering work in establishing healthcare for women, reflect the deep care and compassion embedded in the Bharatiya society?
So, when we are talking about Lokmanthan, Lokmanthan is planned, thought about, and conceived to handle a certain problem that we have today. The narratives that have been set by our colonial masters created binary in our society. They replicated their experience or their societal norms onto our society, while that was not the fact at all. So, for instance, they bought this binary called classical versus folk. Then you have city dwellers versus people living in forested areas. So they called them tribes or whatever. They created certain names. So when you have a term called classic, obviously what is classic? It becomes crude, non-classic. Non-classic is a more milder term. It actually speaks about somebody who is not cultured, who is not classical, who is brute, that kind of a stuff. When you're talking about city dwellers, in fact, you see their membership to that particular kingdom, a member in that particular kingdom was called a citizen. That means people who belong to a city only. So that means people living in the forest areas or in rural areas were completely disenfranchised. They were considered to be brutes, uncivilized. They replicated that here. What we also did was we just translated that into our Indian languages, Bharatiya languages. A citizen became Nagarika or Paura. Paura, Nagarika. These two again are city dwellers. What happens to people living in forests or living in villages? Right? So in fact, in our country, we don't have such a term. What we have is terms like Nagaravasi, Gramavasi, Vanavasi, based on where you are living. All of you are subjects of a certain kingdom. If you are belonging to Magadha, you become a Magadhi. If you are belonging to Travancore, probably Travancore. But collectively, we are all called Bharatiyas. So our association with this great land doesn't depend on whether you're living in a city or in a village or in a forest. It comes from an association with this great holy land. That's a fundamental difference. But unfortunately, we are using the Western terms. Then they created folk. Now, folk, again, as I said, it is a counter to the classic. But whereas we have lok, you can have lok in a city, in a forest, anywhere else. That is the reason why we started this Lokmanthan. So Lokmanthan is to project commonality, continuum, cooperation, and coexistence of people in various strata of the land. So that is the reason why we are doing it. Now we'll replicate that to Rani Rudrama Devi. She is the best icon for Lokmanthan because her family comes from a very modest background. They proudly call themselves Shudras. Shudra was not a derogatory term. Shudra was not some term which today people try to portray as underprivileged or people who have been cast away from the society. No. They proudly said that we belong to the fourth Varna, fourth Shudra community. Because in those days, they didn't have so-called schedules and all. Schedules are all brought up by the British. So you can't have a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or OBC. These terms didn't apply to them. So everybody else was called, a Shudra community. Shudra doesn't mean a negative thing. Shudra means probably they were skilled in a certain aspect in the society. Somebody was a great potter, somebody was a great metallurgist, somebody was somebody else. So they belong to, as I said, they belong to this Kaka tribe, which was focusing on the Jwara Devata. They were great doctors, healers, and they had a lot of understanding of all this. That is the legacy they came up with. But then as the family grew, their strength grew and their kingdom grew, people started associating them with Kshatriyas. They started imputing them connections to Rashtrakutas or Chalukyas. And so that's how it evolved. It happens everywhere, right? Many communities keep growing from one level to another level. So in Bharat, in our history, we were never typecast into a certain block. People move from one to another and from maybe a high pedestal to pretty low pedestal. These things happen. Many communities which were in ruling class during some of these times, when the Muslim invaders came, they went and hid themselves in forests to protect themselves and to continue their culture and legacy. So what happened was, today we are calling them scheduled tribes just because they're living in forests. Once upon a time, they were rulers, right? This migration always happened. In Rani Rudrama Devi's case, they grew from being a very quote unquote tribal background to being an empress, Maharani. So this transition was there. It is not that people living in forests or people living in Shudra community were disenfranchised. They were not thrown away from the society. In fact, one more very important aspect about Rani Rudrama Devi is that she opened the gates for all communities to join her administration, to join her army. Prior to that, only certain communities were, in their army, and administration was taken care by some. But she threw open to many, many communities. So she was a very inclusive social reformer in that sense. So, I mean, the more we know about Rani Rudrama Devi, we are so inspired by her. So, if not Rudrama Devi, there cannot be any better icon for Lokmanthan. So, Lokmanthan, the very theme of Lokmanthan, you see every aspect of it is reflected in Rani Rudrama Devi.
Wow, fantastic.
Being a woman, coming from a very modest family background, and being a dynast, yet earning her place and doing welfare to people, doing so many things. You spoke about her legacy in terms of Medicare for women. She is the first recorded ruler of our country who created an exclusive women's only delivery hospital. She created this in Amaravati, which is today in Andhra Pradesh. But of course, that was part of her kingdom. There is a proclamation, which is Shasana, in Amaravati even today, which speaks about her setting up a Prasuti hospital for women who are, the delivery mode. Ashoka had built hospitals prior to her, but Ashoka built hospitals which are common to all public. Whereas she went a step ahead and created these hospitals that are exclusively for women. Just imagine what we're talking about in those days. Women used to die in pregnancy, during delivery. And so mortality rates were very high. And she focused on that. So if such a personality, which is multifaceted, great personality, she's not an icon of Lokmanthan, who else is?
That's such a nice call. Really very nice call, considering the versatility of her personality. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing insights, Sandy. So, as you talk, it's so interesting and so feel like asking you more intriguing questions. Okay. Western narratives often misrepresent our traditions. In your view, how does Rani Rudrama Devi's legacy serve as a unifying force, reminding us of our shared Bharatiya identity and pride in our tribal and cultural roots?
So, as I said, though she was an empress and such a great queen, she had all the wealth that she could desire, she never forgot her roots. So, you won't see the Ekavira Devi, or you look at Ainavolu. Ainavolu is another place where it is Mallanna's temple, where even today, till this day, people do a jatra there. And the jatra is...
Yeah, Mallanna Jatara, right?
Mallanna Jatara. So there people go with, they offer turmeric or rice. They offer it to him out of their produce. Because this Jatara is held immediately after Pongal, Sankranti. So that's the time when they get a crop in their hand. So they go and donate it to the temple. and they do go puja, and they cook the freshly harvested rice and lentils with some jaggery. They cook it, they dance, they offer their arms, and then go. So this is a tribe, so-called tribe. Again, we are using these English terms for want of better term in English. But the legacy continues from a city to a forest. There is a huge commonality between them and a connectivity between them. So even she encouraged and she allowed, I would say, no, I would say, propagated and patronized all such gods who in today we can call as tribal gods. So that's the kind of a legacy she had. Vast areas of this particular territory that she was ruling, you can find these temples, which typically today, in today's parlance, you can say they are all tribal gods, right? And
Sir,
yeah,
you were saying, right? Maybe for lack of a better word for that particular word, tribe, you said lok is a better word. So
absolutely.
do we continue to use that in our further conversation?
Correct. Lok is beyond tribe.
Lok is beyond tribe.
Yeah. So probably lok is the best word to use. We need to remove the term, folk. We need to remove the term tribe. And more importantly, we need to remove the term called Adivasis. Adivasi is a very dangerous term that has been planted into our memory, collective memory of the society. Adivasis, they have given this term called Adivasis to people who live in forests. And, by that term, they're implying the rest of them are invaders or occupiers. They came from outside. So that's the basis on which they produce this Aryan invasion theory. And then when scientifically it was proved that there was no invasion, they switched it to calling it Aryan migration theory. Whether invasion or migration, they're essentially saying, other than these Adivasis, rest are all supplants into this country.
Right.
So that is actually true in territories where they conquered, colonized, like in the Americas, be it North America or South America, Australia, New Zealand. So all these areas, they don't belong there. They went colonized, marginalized, killed, exterminated the local populations. And then, obviously they have this term called natives or native Red Indians or whatever, aboriginals. So many terms they use.
Right.
So they just changed the term into our language and called it Adivasis. It doesn't apply. You, me, everybody in this holy land, we are all Adivasis. We all have our roots here. In fact, the latest DNA studies actually prove this. Majority of the DNA of people in this particular Bharat, Akhand Bharat, I'm extending it to even Afghanistan, Pakistan, majority of the DNA is local for us. There is always an add mixing. People would have come to conquer us. For instance, Arabs came, Turks came, Persians came, so many people came. So there would be some blood mixture. That is inevitable. Similarly, people came here for studies or for business or for marital purposes. So there would be certain mixture of DNA from other, communities and populations. But predominantly, the mitochondrial DNA, which comes from the mother, that has not changed. Across the communities, be it Kashmiri Muslim or a Tamil DMK leader, or be it Naga leader, or be it Pashtun, our DNAs are all having the same origin. So this typecasting and binary which the West has tried to implicate on us, or force on us, Lokmanthan is trying to dismantle it. Lokmanthan's purpose is to dismantle it. So in that sense, yes, this is something which they built over 100, at least 100 years minimum. They built this kind of a narrative. So we are making our humble attempt in trying to dismantle this false narrative on us.
Wow, very nice, very nice. So this really lures interest into this upcoming Lokmanthan event. So what does it have to offer to the youth, to the various people planning to attend that, and as a getting to know about it?
First of all, we don't know about ourselves. For instance, as I said, I lived best part of my life in Warangal. I grew up in Warangal. I studied in Warangal. Yet I know very little of Kakatiyas. Even people who are studying a bit of Kakatiyas today, they also really don't know the true story of such great, noble, humble, and benevolent rulers that we should all be proud of. So we really don't know about ourselves. We really don't know the legacies. We don't know the history, the successes, nor the pains. We do not know the pains with which this entire land suffered when they invaded and defeated Prataparudra. And the great King Prataparudra, who was the grandson of Rani Rudrama Devi, when he knew that he's going to be defeated, when he got this message from his spies, of messengers from Delhi, that this time you can't stand their army, so decide what you want to do. So first thing he did was he sent all his great scholars, pandits, who had the knowledge of our ancient Bharat, including Vedas. He shifted them to the islands in Godavari, in what is today's Godavari district, Western East Godavari. He gave them Agraharams or whatever it is and asked them to go. His idea was these people will not go and kill them because they don't have any wealth. So at least my culture, my civilization, my legacy will be saved. So he went and protected them. Second, he gave away all his wealth. He knew that they're going to come and loot it. So he gave all that wealth to one of the persons who was from Warangal, but went on to become the Peethadipati of Sringeri, Mahaswami Vidyaranya Tirtha. He gave all his wealth to Vidyaranya Tirtha, asked him to protect it far away from the reach of these people. So he took all the wealth and kept it in Sringeri. But after some time, after 40, 50 years, after Musnir Naikas, all that happened, finally, when the time was right, he established the Vijayanagar Empire. Where do you think the money came from? That was from a great ruler like Prataparudra. So, point I'm making is that we do not know our history. We do not know our legacy. We have no idea of what pains they went through, what sacrifices they did, what kind of successes they had, what kind of noble people they were. We have no idea. Lokmanthan is a place where we offer these things. We offer solutions. We offer real, true, genuine narrative of things which should have been, but which are not. That is what the youth of this country should come to Lokmanthan to understand. What our true legacy is. Unless we know, one of my cousins said, what is there in language? It's just a language for communication. Right? Because the core language of Telugu, their children don't know. Then when I said, why don't you teach them Telugu? Said, it's just a matter of communication. How does it matter? So that's a kind of a problem with the current generation. Right? So the thing is, language doesn't necessarily, it's just not for communication. It is a vehicle to communicate the culture of your forefathers.
Right.
It transmits the culture of your forefathers. So Lokmanthan aims to look at all these things, right? It wants to focus on the rich legacy of this land, which the colonizers had broken up into binaries. So this Lokmanthan 2024, what is going to come up is Lokavalokan. The way the country, the entire population of this land, the way they thought, their behavior, their understanding, their thought processes, how was it? That is what we are going to focus on. We're going to focus on three aspects in that. We are going to focus on Lok Vichar, Lok Vyavahar, Lok Vyavastha. So that means how people had thoughts, I mean, their thinking methodologies, their thinking processes, their living styles, and their institutions that they created. So all these things are going to be discussed. This is a wonderful opportunity for current generation. Why, for that matter, I would say even for elders who are all products of the nonsensical Western education system, right? Maybe they have some kind of a trust and they have some kind of a respect for our legacy, but they do not know it. All of them should come visit Lokmanthan, listen to these people who are great scholars, experts in each of these aspects. And this is a platform where just not scholars, but people who are practitioners, who are actually living and practicing it, they are coming here. And people who are activists, who are trying to save and then uplift these ancient cultures, All of them are going to come into this one platform. And so it's a great opportunity for us to decolonize, to understand what we are, and also understand what nonsense has been thrust into our brain. In that sense, we will become true Bharatiyas. That is why everybody should visit Lokmanthan.
Wow. So nicely said. So nicely said. So the upcoming Lokmanthan event is from November 21st to 24th, right? So again, this is
In,
an
in Shilpakala Vedika, of course, Shilpakala Vedika, there will be intellectual speeches will be there, talks will be there, sessions will be there. That needs registration. People need to register, and we have limited seats there. But then Shilpa Ramam, we're going to host a massive exhibition there. So people are going to actually showcase their wares, their technologies, their knowledge, their wisdom, whatever they're living through, all that is going to be shown. And there will be performances. All 4 days, there will be lots of performances which come from various aspects of our great motherland, which come from north, south, east, west. It's just not confined to Telangana or Andhra, but across the country, people are going to come and perform, and they're going to showcase their, ancient wisdom in those exhibitions. So that's open for everybody. Anybody can come. It's absolutely open footfall. Only in the conclave inside the Shilpakala Vedika, that needs a registration because we have limited seats there. So those of our audience who are interested, they should go to lokmanthan.org, apply, and it is, like I said, we have limited numbers. So unfortunately, some of them we may have to reject, but then they should probably definitely apply.
Very nice, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable pearls of knowledge, wisdom, and treasure we actually have, and we don't know the treasures. So it's like a treasure hunt. So maybe, as you're talking, now it tells me maybe this attending the Lokmanthan event is like attending a treasure hunt, right? And then getting to know the treasures.
Absolutely. Discovering who we are. We are discovering our own true identity. We lost our identity. This is the best place for us to rediscover who we are. We all know that story of how a small tiger cub was lost. Her mother died and she was brought up by a pack of sheep. She never knew that she was a tiger. She was behaving like a sheep only. But one day when she went to drink water, she saw her face in that. She realized who she was. Right? The moment she knew, she became a tiger.
Wow.
So Lokmanthan is like a reflection where you come, understand who you are, and we want you to become tigers. We want you to become great Bharatiyas. That's why everybody is welcome to Lokmanthan.
Great analogy, really great analogy. Thank you so much, Giridhar garu, for your valuable time. Thank you, Andy. Thank you.